Hi there, Year 12. This afternoon we're just having a quick look at how to structure a good 20-mark education essay, which is what we're going to be working on next lesson. The essay question, which I shared with you last lesson, I know some of you weren't there because of exams, is going to be using material from item A and elsewhere, assess the view that working class underachievement in education is a result of home circumstances and family background. It's a 20-mark question, and some of you should, well, most of you should have the mark scheme for a 20-mark question. Moving on. This is the item that we're going to be looking at in class together. Okay? According to some sociologists, many working class children are disadvantaged by their early experiences. Studies of preschool socialization show important differences between social classes that contribute to differences in educational achievement. Some working class parents have lower expectations of their children, place less emphasis on constant improvement, and do not reward success systematically. Now, the reason I've highlighted that section in red is that these are all examples of what? So just note down on your lined paper, what are these examples of? And can you think of any sociologists that might agree with this part of the item? For some reason, the PowerPoint has cut out one sentence I'm going to read to you now, which is not on the page in front of you, which is part of the item, which says, working class homes with fewer books and educational toys may provide a less stimulating learning environment. So what types of factors are those? Books and educational toys. And again, what sociologists might agree with that point. The final part of the item is right in front of us. The government considers these factors so important that it has sought to intervene. For example, Sure Start involves over 500 local programs in deprived areas, working with disadvantaged families to promote young children's intellectual, linguistic, and social development, so that they are in the position to do well when they start school. If you don't know what Sure Start is, have a look up on Google about Sure Start, and see if you can find any recent news articles about what's actually happening to it since the 2010 coalition government came into power. I've highlighted intellectual, linguistic, and social development in a different colour, pink. What are these examples of? Here's a description of the top band. Okay, so this is what you need to be doing to get into the top band. Analysis and evaluation will be explicit and relevant, so it will be clear and it will be focused on the question. The answers will show sound, conceptually detailed knowledge and an understanding of sociological material on class and achievement. So you'll be using key concepts, and you'll be looking at you'll hopefully be using sociologists that have written about class and achievement, and you'll be able to demonstrate your understanding through detailed discussion. You must use item A, and this will be sensitively interpreted to meet the demands of the question. Again, this PowerPoint seems to have cut off the fact that analysis and evaluation may be developed by contrasting material and cultural explanations, so that might be where you develop your debate, or between school and home factors being the most important factors that influence how well a child does at school. Here's some guidance on how to structure your essay. Above, I've put the question just to remind you that we're looking at assessing the view that working class underachievement in education is the result of home circumstances and family background. Because the key word is assess, you need to develop a debate. So try and think about how you might structure your debate. Firstly, in your introduction, you need to show that you understand the question. To explain any concepts that you might not be clear to someone who's not been studying sociology, and you can briefly outline what you might be discussing below. Big tip is to refer to the item in the introduction so you don't forget. Now, in terms of your planning, start thinking about how you're going to develop your debate. You want at least 2 good points agreeing with the question and 2 good points disagreeing with the statement. And you can structure the essay how you want. You may do 1 for and then 1 against, and then another for and another against, or 2 for and then 2 against. Use the item to help plan your debate. The item can give you loads of tips of points to make and maybe some guidance on how to actually structure your essay. So please do use the item. Make sure you always link each point back to the question. How has what you just said helped you actually answer the question? You need to explain this. So things along the lines of, this clearly shows that working class underachievement can be explained by home factors. Don't forget your examples and studies, and mention theoretical perspectives where possible. And finally, in order to get the very top bracket of 19 or 20 marks, you must have a good conclusion which is evidence-backed, and you do not repeat yourself. Here's an example of a paragraph from an essay. I want you to read it and think about how you might improve it. So at this point, I would quite like you to pause and have a look at this slide and just think about how you might improve it. Hopefully, these are some of the ways you considered improving that paragraph. I've divided the skills into knowledge in red, application in blue, analysis is in pink, although it also looks a bit red, and evaluation is in green. So, the main reason that working class children fail at school is because their parents lack an interest in their education. What sociological term could you use here that is that a parent's lack of interest is a good example of? This means that the child is less likely to be bothered about doing well at school. Now, if you can explain why this is in a bit more detail, you're developing your analysis skills. What sociologist supports this view about parents' attitudes? So here you're going to recall on key knowledge. And finally, you can work on your application skills. How could you make a clear link back to the question? How has your argument above helped you answer this question? Okay, moving on to the other side of the argument. At school, children from working class backgrounds are more likely to end up in lower sets. Now, firstly, how would you start this sentence so that the second point is actually evaluating the one before? So it's both evaluation and linking to the previous point. So have a think about how you might do that. So again, at school, children from working class backgrounds are more likely to end up in lower sets. Now, what sociologists said this was quite likely, and if you can explain why this is likely, that's also analysis as well as knowledge. Where they may form anti-school subcultures. Again, who researched subcultures? Who could you talk about? And also, if you can explain why is it that they might form subcultures, you're developing your analysis skills. Black students, in particular, are likely to end up in such sets. Now, be careful here, because you're talking about ethnicity and not class, so you've got to retain your focus. What sociologists argued this, however, and why did they say this happened? Why did they say black kids ended up in lower sets? Now, here's the final challenge. Can you criticise or AO2 the point above and link it back to the question, which is on class and not ethnicity? I'm going to leave that with you. All I'd like you to bring along to the lesson on Monday or Tuesday, depending on when I see you, is a rewritten version of this paragraph, where hopefully you have filled in some of the extra bits I've suggested. Okay, see you on Monday. Bye.